I'd like to propose an idea. What if the river were our clock?
Clocks are a relatively new invention. They really became practical with Galileo's invention of the pendulum. And that was just a few hundred years ago. Before that, people had to reckon time based on observation of the world, of natural systems, mostly looking to the sky, looking to the sun, the moon, the stars. This is the Chattahoochee River. It flows through Atlanta, a city that was founded with a railway.
It's always run on railroad time, but it doesn't really have to be that way. Still have these creeks, and you have the Chattahoochee River running right through town. What if we were to use that as the time standard? What if that were the basis for how people live their lives around here?
We are a part of nature, not apart from it. And so I want to build a clock that will be calibrated by the flow of the river. So anybody in town will be able to find out how fast the river is flowing and to calibrate their lives based on that seasonal change and also the long-term change. So as the climate changes, it will change the flow of the river. It will give people this sort of intuitive sense of what's happening in the world, and ideally it can recalibrate us in a sense in terms of thinking about the impact that we have on the environment. Living life on river time can manifest in some interesting ways. If Bach were to be performed at the fastest rate that the Chattahoochee has ever flowed at, it might sound something like this. I wanted to make this project more about the water, to really get people into the water. I came up with the idea of using a clepsydra, which is a water clock, where water flows out of a vessel that has a hole in the bottom, and it takes a given set amount of time for the water to flow out. You take this vessel, you dip it into the water, and you then drop a leaf or a stick, and you keep track of where it is over the course of time, where it goes by the end of the span of time that it takes for water to flow from the clepsydra. And then you pace it out. And the number of paces that you walk gives you the rate of flow for the river relative to the rate of flow in the past, so that you can every time that you visit, find out whether it's going faster or whether it's slower than it was the previous time. And you can create an average, and you can use that as a standard or as a benchmark against which then to be able to reckon river time anytime that you visit. If Bach were to be performed at the slowest rate that the Chattahoochee has ever flowed, it might sound something like this. Ritual is a particularly powerful way to help reestablish relationships with places that matter. So for instance, I'm looking at the possibility of placing stones in a creek, going out 1,000 years in the future, where the dates are gradually eroded, they're worn away by the flow of water, and where the depth of incision is determined based on the current average annual flow rate, but where in future decades that flow rate might change, and as a result, the calendar might give you a date that is different from the date that you get from your smartwatch. And what I'm trying to do on one level is to say that this creek also has authority, and that we need to allow for that time also to be a part of how we think about time and how we think about our planet. But also, those stones become a prompt. They draw us out to the water. The generational increments establish an intergenerational relationship with the waterway.
For instance, what if there were an annual pilgrimage up to the headwaters? You hike in, you take a measure of the water, and you hike out. It's really remarkable to think about how this is a source of a river that flows all the way out into the Atlantic Ocean, and how large and how forceful it becomes as it collects water from all the tributaries. It's from here all the way down to Apalachicola.
So if we were to play Bach to river time as it's currently flowing here on the Chattahoochee, it might sound something like this. It seems to me that having the river as a time standard and having the encouragement for people to go back to the river on a regular basis, to take the measure of the water for their own personal almanac or logbook, or to do so as a community for the sake of setting a municipal clock by taking the measure of the headwaters, that these are ways in which to establish a rhythm of human action for each individual and for us collectively to continually come back to the water, to flow with the river.